Hey, what's up, folks? So this is a recap of episode 3. It's my takeaways. I'm super excited that you are here today. We are going to do a recap of episode 3 with Ray Swan. But before you go listen to episode 3, if you haven't listened to it already, I'm going to go deeper into some of the things we talked about. Ray Swan is an educator. He runs an all-boys school in Melbourne, Australia. He was a part of our first series of podcasts, Taking Off the Mask. And now, as an educator, we invited him back to be a part of our series, Unmasking with Male Educators. And this conversation was a beautiful, another one, like to really deeply connect with Ray and the work he's doing, but also the work he's been doing around making and creating spaces for boys, not only his school, but men to do our work. And so today we're going to talk about 3 things. 1, why safety is more important than your most amazing lesson plan. 2, how teachers set the thermostat for their classrooms, how you create what the weather is going to be like in your classroom. And 3, I'm going to answer this question. Where do I find the soul of teaching? And I'm really curious to hear your answer. So please share the notes with us. Send us an email. Let us know where you find the soul of teaching. And if you're not a teacher, what does teaching feel like to you? What do you remember of teaching? What do you remember of teachers? What do you remember? What do you know or feel about the concept of what is happening in our classrooms with teachers? As a male educator at your school site, it can get lonely. Only 23% of K-12 educators in America are male. And just think about what this gender gap means for your male students. They experience disproportionate levels of discipline. This is a show for male educators who want to feel more understood by their community and want to create emotionally safe classrooms and schools for the next generation of male students. Welcome to Unmasking with Male Educators. Now, 1, safety and amazing lessons plan. How do you create safety in the classroom and make sure that that's priority over what is happening in the paper to the students and passing out and who writes on the board and all those pieces? You know, when I was a teacher, my classroom was a very important space to me. Like I wanted students to feel safe there. There was usually a couch in my room. There were real plants in my room. There was music in my room. Sometimes I realized students couldn't handle music while we studied because they want to bob their head and tap their feet, and then no work gets done. So we've had cycles of what things could be allowed in my classroom. There was always some snacks somewhere because I remember being a student who couldn't focus all the time because I wasn't eating lunch. And so all the ways that we try and make the classroom itself, and not only the aesthetics of the classroom, but also the environment of the classroom feel good, we have to make sure that our students know that they're safe to be there. So one of the stories I'm going to tell you about how I experienced that not only in my teaching, but in my classroom is when I was a teacher and Ever Forward Club had just began to start. We had a lot of rules to play by in terms of, because we were a club at the school. I wasn't an outside organization. I wasn't a nonprofit. I was running a club. We had to follow a lot of the club rules. Now, most teachers were not like creators of clubs. They were like the advisors. So a student would say, hey, I want to do this club. And the teacher would say, okay, I'll be your advisor. And so there were lots of collaboration. Since Ever Forward Club was something that I created, then it was a lot of me trying to figure out all the pieces, and we're really trying to engage young men who were brilliant and amazing, but maybe not be engaged in school the way you would think of a school club president, right? These are young men who maybe didn't like school or school wasn't their favorite thing to do, but they came and they did the work and they showed up as their best selves when they could. And one time in particular, we had a situation where every month a student leader had to go to the ASB, the Associated Student Body meeting, to tell them what's going on, what's coming up, and what's happening for the next month in your club. So one of our young men, who was one of the ones who didn't necessarily love school, but he showed up when he could show up, and he did what he could do when he did what he could do. Being vague, really, because I love this young man, but he struggled in school. And so he was in charge of going to those meetings. Now, sometimes I had to make a phone call. I had to be like, call the front office. Hey, can you make an announcement to tell that young man to go to that office? to his meeting, and then he would be out hanging out during lunch with his friends, and then he would hear the announcement, and he'd be like, "Oh, I better get over there." So he would go over there. There's one time in particular. It's the day of the meeting. I call for him on the loudspeaker. He gets over there, I guess, and when he gets there, the person in charge of the student body, the teacher advisor, was really rude to him, like disrespectful to him, like made him feel like because he was late that he couldn't talk about what Ever Forward was going to be doing. And I think if you know this young man, you know that first of all, him coming to school is a gift and a blessing. But him going to a meeting to take off time of his lunch on a time where it's not an Ever Forward Club meeting, it's a meeting, another meeting, like that's a big deal. And the fact that he got disrespected created a big kind of situation. So he came back to the classroom, and I could just see his body language was just like off, right? I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" Say, "Man, she disrespected me. She's talking to me crazy in front of all these students." I'm like, "Wait, what happened? What do you mean? What happened?" Like, I said, "Did you go to the meeting?" "Yeah, I went." And then when I got there, she was giving me all this lip, like he was describing, and you could see his body just tensing up, like he was mad. He was mad. And I was like, "Okay, so tell me again what happened. I want to know how to support you, but I want to know what happened." So he says he went to the room. He was late because I had called him on the radio. I was like, "Hey, making sure you get to that meeting on the loudspeaker." He got a call from Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones is amazing. He went over there, and then she was like, "Well, you're late, so you can't present for Ever Forward." Now, the way it works at these meetings, because they're using like this system of power, if you don't get to present on what your club is doing, then your club can't do anything the next month. And then it puts a big barrier in it because those meetings are only once a month. And I was like, "What do you mean we can't do our event?" "Of course. I mean, you were late, but you were there. So what's going on?" "Well, that's what she said. She said, well, we can't have our event because I was late to the meeting. And now and I was like, okay, like, what else happened?" And he said, "Man, she was just yelling at me. She was like yelling at me in front of all these people. So I walked out." And I was like, okay. So I get up and I said, "Come with me." And we walk back to the classroom to the teacher. I'm waiting. She's talking to some students, so I'm waiting patiently. I'm waiting with him. He's standing with me, and we're just, having a moment of just wait. And then after she talks to that one student she's talking to, because she sees me there, I'm 6'1", 300 pounds. Like she didn't miss me. She then starts talking to another student. Now, hey, I don't think I'm more important than a student, but I am a teacher and I do have class to teach. I am there to have a conversation with her. She knows I'm there to have a conversation with her. And then she starts talking to another student. And I'm like, And I took a moment to figure out, should I say something or should I just let it keep going? But this conversation is kind of going on and on. It's not really like an ending conversation. It's like a conversational conversation. I'm like, "Excuse me, I'm here to talk to you about what just happened at lunch." She's like, "Well, I'm talking to a student." I said, "Well, I know you're talking to a student, but you were talking to another student before that, and you see me here, and I have to teach in the next period. So I need to speak to you." And she's like, "Well, you can't talk to me while I'm talking to another student." I said, "Well, yeah, I mean, you have to give me the permission to do that. But yes, I'm here to talk to you about this." I said, "I want you to let you know, I heard that you yelled at my student in front of all the other leaders." I said, "I don't think that's okay." "Well, he showed up late." I said, "It doesn't matter if he shows up late. The rules are he has to be here. The rules are not that he has to be here on time. And because it's lunchtime, everyone's going to get lunch before they come here anyway. So, for you to front him out in front of everybody, I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay." And so I think you told him something like we couldn't have our next event because he was late. I said, "You can't do that." And then she started saying, "Well, I'm in charge of XYZ." I said, "Listen, let me be really clear." And she started raising her voice. And I was like, really clear. I said, "I'm going to let you know that you don't get to make a decision of what we are going to do in Ever Forward. He came here to do the job that he had to do, whether he was late or not." And I remember this dialogue back and forth. And I'm trying to be calm because, first of all, I'm a big person. Second of all, I have a big voice. Third of all, I'm a Black man and this is a white woman in education. And so first of all, I'm trying to not create drama, and there's a bunch of students around. So I'm also trying to be really mindful in every word I use and how I use the words, so I don't get into a place where I'm in a battling match. But I am holding space for this young man. I am trying to create safety for him to be believing that school is for him too. That yes, if he's late, he should hear somebody maybe not happy that he's late. But to be treated unfairly, he should know that somebody also has his back. Now, I'm giving you an example about something that happens outside of the classroom per se, but it's all connected to how students see us as educators. When students see us as people who care about them, who have their back, they will go the extra mile. When they believe that, okay, these teachers don't like me, I don't like these classes, nobody, like, it begins to create a sense of like, place is not safe. So why do I show up to a place every day where I don't feel like I'm good at this? I don't like them, they don't like me, and I don't feel safe. The story of this student wasn't necessarily about a direct lesson plan that you chose to deal with safety in the room, but what it was about every student you come in contact with is trying to decide whether you are a safe person that they can go to and connect with or not. See, that young man was in my class. He was also in a part of the Ever Forward Club. What I did in that moment to go and stand up for him was in service of two things: service of him as a student and service of him as his mentor, who cared and knew more about him than any other teacher knew about him. And because I had built a relationship and a connection with him, when he trusted me to come and not spout off, because normally he would not tolerate anybody yelling at him and definitely fronting him off in front of people. He came back to my classroom where he knew it was safe to like let those emotions out. He used the words he needed to use to describe to me what happened. And then he didn't know what I was going to do necessarily. He didn't maybe even think I was going to walk over there with him and really confront the situation. But what I know about him and what I know about the situation is that he showed up. He did his best, and that young man was a part of Ever Forward until he graduated. And even after he graduated, he came back to events and still showed up to 24-hour relay events. Like he was connected, but it was more than just because I taught him math. It was because he knew that he had someone he could trust. And that's what your students are looking for in your classrooms. So that's number one, how you're creating the safety for your students in all the ways that it shows up on school campuses is so much more important as your most amazing lesson plan. Okay. Now, there's another part of the conversation that Ray and I had that was about how we set the temperature in the classroom. There's one part he talks about how when I'm a teacher, I got to be mindful because when I come around the class and when I'm doing my thing, there's a big wave that comes behind me. So if I come into a group and I'm addressing students' behavior and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Get your act together. And I'll leave that group and go to another group. Like the wave of whatever I've brought to them energetically is still there. The ones who don't like you raising your voice are now in a mindset. The ones who are like, it wasn't me, they're in a mindset. And you go around the room setting off these little fires. And sometimes you may be putting them out, and some you may be actually waving the fan at, igniting them. And so what we talk about in this context is, as a teacher, as an educator, you have to be the thermostat as opposed to the thermometer. You need to have a thermometer. You need to come when the students are walking into class and you are noticing there's some energy off, to be like, oh, I'm gonna just pretend like I don't notice the energy is off and just jump into teaching. You're probably gonna have a rougher time that day. I think the times that I have had experiences in class where things didn't go well, I saw something, felt something, or sometimes even maybe I didn't notice it. But at the times I did, I'm like, I thought there was something off. And that thing that was off was connected to that thing over there, and that student over there, and that thing over here. And then all of a sudden the eruption happened. And I'm like, whoa, what happened? What's happening? And once you've already lost it, you're not getting back to the work. Not in a good way, because everyone's minds is all bottled up with what just happened in the classroom. So it's really important that you set the thermostat. Hey, all right, okay, what's happening? Okay, I'm noticing there's some fire going on. People just got back from lunch. There was a big incident at lunchtime, so everyone's in their minds, in their heads. Okay, what am I going to do right now? Okay, I got this lesson. I got to get through this lesson. We got a test in a week. I need to be focused, but right now, no one's even focused. They're focused on that fight that happened at lunch. They're focused on the drama that happened in front of the school. They're worried about X, Y, Z. And how do I make sure that I'm making space for the real stuff that just pops up in classrooms? The fire alarm got pulled in the middle of class. What happens? Okay, we come back to class. Everybody's been outside hanging with their friends, laughing and giggling. I come back in like, okay, let's get back to work. And yes, we do have to be managers of our classroom. And we have to navigate the energy of what's really happening in our young people, in their side, in their lives, in their bodies, in their minds. And so that's about setting the thermostat as opposed to just taking the temperature and just kind of following along with whatever's happening in the room. Now, The last part that we're going to talk about, the last part is the soul of teaching. Where do I find the soul of teaching? And I really think that this is a really beautiful question, and sometimes it could be philosophical. But let me try and get to the heart of it as much as I can. For me, the soul of teaching is finding why I do this work. What is your why? Why did I choose to become a teacher? Why did I leave that career, come to teaching, and find myself sometimes really questioning why did I do this work? I've had to ask myself many times. I've had to ask myself, look in the mirror, look at my checking account, look at my my no savings account, and be like, why are you doing this? You could be making so much money. And I had to get clear. There's one philosopher out there who uses the acronym for the word why is what hurts you. Are you become a teacher? Why did you choose that? What hurts you enough that made you make this decision? What are you valuing? And I truly want the world to be a better place. I truly know that every student I come in contact with, and when I was a teacher, administrator, and now when I come in schools from the outside, has the opportunity to absolutely transform not only their school, but the world. And they may not choose to transform themselves, the school, or the world, but they have the potential. And so if I can be clear that what I'm trying to do is say, I am going to give my best. I was at a school the other day in Winters, California, and my first workshop at Winters, it was all sixth graders, and their sixth graders got energy. I mean, they're off the. I said, hey, I'm gonna look for some volunteers in a little bit. When I ask for volunteers, I'm not gonna call on you, just come up. And I got to the part where you ask for volunteers, and literally, this hasn't happened in a long time, so I wasn't prepared. Like I'm used to like having to kind of pull people and grab people. There was like 50 students up in there, like in front of me. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, I gotta be careful what I ask for because it's not the norm of getting so many students to volunteer. And when I moved to that next class, which was the 7th and 8th graders, I was asking for volunteers. I did still have some volunteers, but they weren't as eager. They weren't jumping out of their seats to volunteer. They weren't, and the volume of volunteers wasn't as much. I mean, it was more like, oh, my friend's going to do it. Okay, then I'll do it. Right? It was a lot of that, as you can know, what happens in middle school as that development grows. But what we get a chance to do every time we build connection with students and we make space for them to say, I see you. You belong here. You matter. So if they don't get it wherever they live, if they don't get it amongst their friend groups, when we come to these spaces, we get to make sure that they know that that is the space for them. And so many students came up afterwards. So many students came up during lunchtime when I was packing up just to say, hey, thank you for being here. Hey, and they wanted to say something. They wanted to say some more. They didn't know what to say, but really deeply connecting to the message. Can I have a balloon? Of course you can have a balloon. Can I have one of those masks? Sorry, though, I can't give you one of my masks. And how many times do we create an environment that absolutely transforms schools? That's what we can do. That's what you can do. That's what we try and do here in the Ever Forward Club. And if you're looking for a way that you can be a part of trying to create that in your school, we invite you to be a part of the Million Mask Movement. We invite you to say, you know what? I don't know how to do this yet in my classroom, but since they got these tools that they've been working on for 20 years, maybe let me try it. Let me see if it works. And I think you'll be amazed, you'll be surprised, and you will find an amazing connection with students when you first get really real about who you are. What's the soul of why you teach? If you ever had a kid tell you that you teach for money and you know that's not true, you know that there's a different answer behind that. You may not justify it in that moment, but as a person who always justified it when a kid thought that I was here for some money, I'm like, I'm here for a whole different reason. Because this chump change, I mean, if you called where you work what they pay you chump change. When I started teaching, it was not very good. It was actually pretty horrible. And so because I had known what it was like to be treated in a corporate America setting for profits, and then I come to the school setting where it's not, I want you to know that I told students, I said, I'm not here for this money. And I'll show you the check stub so you prove it. I'm here because I want you to have a better life. I want you to choose that your life means something more, that your life means enough that you're going to go fight for it, that you're going to go give your best. And then maybe one day after you go out and make some good money, you will come back and teach too. Maybe it'll be you. I ain't gonna ever be no teacher. We talking about you crazy? I would never be teaching none of these bad kids. Yeah, I would have told you the same thing. And so I hope that as we not only have a shortage of men in education, that we not only have a shortage of educators, period, that we find people who have a heart and a soul for teaching. That's what we need. So, folks, I encourage you to go and listen to the episode 3 with Ray Swan. Reminder, these are the 3 things we talked about today. 1, setting safety as a priority in your classroom, maybe even more important than whatever the lesson plan is for that day. 2, teaching is setting the thermostat of your classroom, taking the temperature and being like, okay, we got to set this down. Oh, we got to turn this up. Like, you have the role of setting the temperature in your classroom. And 3, to be clear about why you have a soul for teaching. Because in those hard days, and for some of us, we're about a few days away from the break and the holidays, or maybe you're, depending on where you are in the time of this episode, you are like, this is what I feel right now. Maybe you've had a good break and now you rejuvenated, but at the moment where it gets rough, you got to come back to the soul of why I do this work. Folks, thank you for being a part of Unmasking with Male Educators. We look forward to you being a part of this season. If you know a male educator in your community, your school, somewhere out in the world that you think we should talk to, send us an email, let us know, and we look forward to talking to you soon.